Israel. Israel. It's been a long time since you had a king. It's been a long time. For fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction.
I thought he was with you.
He was, but now I can't find him. Where is he?
You won't find him here. The king has returned.
This reaction to this video is something that the whole world's been waiting on. Because the whole world's been basically led astray. And I'm glad these two people, Billy, who I watched over the years and love, just gathering knowledge, and this other guy, Wesley Huff. This is the first video I've ever seen of him, so I don't really know much about him. But it's just mainly about coming at the historians and the Christians and religious folks so they can get a better understanding on what's really going on. Because like I said, at the end of the day, we all the same. We all bleed. We all want the same things in life. So there's no need for us to have all this chaos in the world, when the world wasn't designed for that. So to touch on Billy, I want to say thank you for all your research and all your hard work. It's been well noted throughout the years. And don't take it to offense. I know the people are coming after you right now because they lost. And they lost. So, when they see somebody actually trying to find an answer, they want to attack them, especially if it doesn't fit their narrative on how things are supposed to go. But that's why we have the good book written in black and white, to point us in the right direction. But in the case of Billy, where he goes wrong is, I like this curiosity and his hunger for wanting to learn more and acquiring knowledge. It's just that he leads to his own understanding. And when you lead to your own understanding, you're bound to end up down the wrong road, especially when you're chasing Mammon, so whenever you're doing things for the sake of being paid for, wisdom tends to start to flee from you, so that's kind of what happened with Billy, and that's how the Father works, wisdom. That's one thing that you must have, when you're seeking the Father in the heavenly kingdom. That's one thing you must get first, wisdom and understanding, and the fear of the Lord, because once you understand that, it'll keep you on the straight and narrow path. And so we're going to get on to this Wesley guy, Wesley Huff. I guess he's a Christian, I would say pretty much like everybody here in the United States at some point in time, been at church or worshiped the Bible or, had some type of religious upbringing. And like I said, this is not to bash anybody or make anybody look wrong, because like in the end of the day, we're all trying to learn. We all want to get to heaven, or at least, that should be your goal, seeking the kingdom of heaven, want to live righteously, and getting that job well done at the end of the road, and that's the point here, is to get everybody to the truth. And the only way to get to the truth is by us bringing up these issues, that was probably harder to talk in the past, because, you look at the people of color skins, you had those barriers, when, certain people couldn't communicate or things like that. So now those barriers are being broke, so this conversation can be had, and that just leads to great things, bringing everybody back to the Father. But I'll be, in later videos going in detail how everything ties up together. But in this video, I just really wanted to touch on this Sinai Bible and this whole Barnabas gospel and this whole Christianity thing and stuff like that. That way it help, get people who are thirsty, it helps, point them in the right direction. And that's what it's really all about when it comes down to it. So, I know Billy Carson, he knows a lot about the Sumerians, Anunnakis, and ancient aliens. But when you start to really understand the Bible, then you really start to understand who those figures really are. And once the people came into the promised land, you had the tribes of Dan. They was one of the tribes that remained in ships, meaning they didn't just settle in land. They kept moving from port to port, And in Judges 5:7, that was one of the questions that was asked. Why did Dan remain in ships? And like I said, I'll be tying everything up in a later video. This is just to touch on these two topics, but this is just a seed that I got planted now. But and one reason is tribe of Dan. They're all related to Anunnaki, fallen angels, Sumerians. They were supposedly the first civilization started in Mesopotamia, the Middle East. And you got to remember that Adam and Eve was first people, and we was all one people. So it's all family. Some of the family went bad, some of the family went good. But at the end of the day, we was all one people. And that's what a lot of people fail to forget, and that's what the Bible basically tells you. It's a story about a creation and then a chosen people and a bloodline that's chosen throughout all the other people for the descendants to rule, be king, be righteous, be the chosen people of God. And the water kind of gets cloudy, because you have everybody who wants a piece of the pie. Some people, some tribes, they weren't happy with the piece of the puzzle they got, so they kind of wanted to change the outcome. And that's where this whole Christian religion and other religions come into play. They all came about to basically hide in plain sight the truth. And so, if you can hide who the true rulers are, that allows you and your friends to rule the world. And we can basically see how the world is today. It ain't the best of the things. So times are changing. But this is for those that have eyes to see and ears to hear, and stay ready, paying attention to the signs and seasons. In Exodus 34 until Numbers 21, you will find the Sinai Bible that God commands Moses to give to the Hebrews. So this is the Sinai Bible that they're talking about, but they're talking about the Greek translation of it. But I gotta remind you, Greek came after Hebrew. So this is basically telling you what was actually in the Sinai Bible. So all you gotta do is go to Exodus 34 through Numbers 21, and it'll tell you what was composed in the Sinai Bible. Nowhere in it will you find Jesus or the New Testament. So there you go right there. It was only the law, statute, and judgment. They had just left Egypt, so the Hebrews were still writing in Hebrew. And that didn't end to the 1880s, according to the history books. So you can look and check that out. That's why through Joseph was told Pharaoh that they were shepherds so that they could keep good pasture, the first true Paleo-Hebrew, and and not assimilate into Egyptian language and culture. So that was kind of one way Father was able to preserve the people, Hebrews, whenever they was in Egypt. You know, that's why he had Joseph, hey, tell Pharaoh they shepherd. You know, that way they both could get the good land, and at the same time they can keep their language and stay close to God, you know, and not be turned away. You know, and that's basically what it all boils down to, you know, being close to God, not being turned away. You know, so when they was in Egypt, you can basically look at the hieroglyphs in Egypt and basically tell that they're one and the same. Paleo-Hebrew came first, then hieroglyphs. But when you study etymology of a word, you know, you take it to the root. That way you can get the understanding of what that word is. The very simplest form, you know. But as we get these more language throughout the years, you look from Hebrew going on through the other languages as they developed, they gradually gain more and more words. More and more words doesn't mean it's superior, but it means the opposite. Because the more words it takes for you to describe something that they used to do in one word means there's more room for confusion and misinterpretation. And in their case, it's more room for their, you know, because they was evil people, spell casting and magic, you know. So if he was trying to persuade the people and think in one way, that's how you would do it, just using language. Because over time, as these languages begin to grow, you know, one word can have 30 different meanings, 20 different meanings, compared to with the Hebrew, you knew exactly what that person was talking about doing that thing. So there wasn't no confusion. So that's another reason why all these different languages came about. You know, yes, the Tower of Babel, but also, you know, before the flood, you know, the fallen angels, they brought that to the people. You know, just like when Adam and Eve was naked in the garden, you know, they wasn't wearing clothes. That's how God knew that they would, because who told you that? So they began to talk, you know. So you got to understand where all this science and all this stuff come from, that they've made it accustomed to us in everyday life. And the reason they've done that is to keep us in perpetual sin. And that's why we're here. You know, we're here to change that and wake the people up and get things moving back to the golden age, you know, because we're tired of this dark, gloom, death, violence. You know, we just want love and prosperity, joy, happiness, you know, heaven on earth. And, you know, I'm not just picking on Christians because, like I said, we was all brought up in the church. But just remember, I'm going to be touching on everything. This is just applying to this video I just happened to see yesterday, and I wanted to touch on it. But like I said, once you read the Bible, all the truth is in there. Abraham was in Hebrew. You know, so let's get back to it. There we go again. So he's dealing with these translations into a language that is far removed from the language that it was first written in. So like I said, once you know how many languages is far removed from the first language in, there goes that many more, you know, different translations that you could have, false interpretations of a word, you know, because of that. You know, that's why we got to stick to the original. You know, that's why God pointed out the bloodline through the ages. Who was the righteous people? Which was the people that's going to be saved? And he brought up Barnabas, which I'm glad he brought up Barnabas because like he said, the Gospel of Barnabas was in Greek and Italian. And like I said, that's not the original. So you got to go back to the original. And he also said it was a forgery. So in that forgery, Barnabas speaks of Jesus. Also in the Bible, verse Acts 9:27, Barnabas speaks boldly about Jesus. So if the gospel of Barnabas, him talking about Jesus, is a forgery, then also Barnabas in the King James Bible boldly speaking about Jesus in Acts 9:27 is also a forgery. Now I think you're starting to see why Jesus was sent into the Gentiles. They want to tell you, that he was sent into the Gentiles, because they need saving with the root and all this. But you got to understand, when you have a people who are walking with God and know who God is, you're not going to go to them and be able to convince them that their Messiah is Jesus, who doesn't look nothing like them. So this is where the tribe of Dan comes into play, where they could travel from port to port, who had technology. That's why when you see the statues of the Sumerians and Anunnaki, why they had wings on them, because we was very technologically advanced back then. As you can see at all the structures, everything has basically been regressing with age, from the language to the buildings, to the way we live, to the food, to how we take care of everything. It's been regressing. So yes, that's what those wings mean, that they had a little technology. So after they got in the promised land, and then the tribe of Dan, they kept going, they knew that their brothers and sisters would eventually fall, like they have been. So they would basically backtrack around and persuade the ones who fell. And then the ones who God took over their places, they could get them to join their team too. Once you start to understand, everything opens up. But that's why I'm here to help. I'm just going to make a point. Some of y'all are able to critical think. Some of y'all might not be able to. But knowing that the Father created this place special for us and for life, knowing that evil accidentally got his way in, but God always had a plan. And through that plan, kept a certain bloodline on the right track. Then, like I said, you would know why they want to basically do everything opposite that was done in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Just like they say, Jesus of Nazareth. Nowhere in the Old Testament, which is where I just showed, is the Sinai Bible. Not the Greek version, but the original Hebrew version. Did they prophesy of Jesus, the Nazarene? My Father speaks the ending from the beginning, not the author of confusion. Satan is. That's why he went to the Gentiles, the ones who didn't know any better, to give them a light. Keep the commandments, people. Jesus was a carpenter and a fisher of men. Go back and you look at all the other patriarchs and look at their profession. A fisher of men sounds very sketchy. It sounds like you up to do no good. Sounds like you would lie, cheat, and steal just to be able to catch them. Because you got to put yourself in that shoes for a second. Jesus was a fisher of men. So that means the men are the fish. Does it end well for the fish if the men are the fish? Okay. So to me, it sounds very Freemasonry. Matter of fact, it probably was, and it is the start of Freemasonry. Because when you look at his disciples, for example, Simon was Peter, John was Mark, and Saul was Paul. You go on and on. And we know that Paul wrote just about all the New Testament, and Paul was Saul. The same King Saul that was against Israel in the end. So when you really look at the apostles, they're really like brothers in the brotherhood order, crooks by trade. I mean, it's funny how you see all the patriarchs before attain glory through their righteousness, but in the New Testament, they wasn't appointed by righteousness, but because they were criminals. You know, that sounds like the wolf in sheep's clothing. I mean, just look at the world today. You look at our politicians. They masquerade like they're there to do good for the people. But we know the truth. We know people live paycheck to paycheck. We got kids out here starving when there's no reason for that. God gave us fruit trees, but yet the people, the government, kill them so they can go buy fruit. So like I said, this was all a setup for the people who wasn't the ones chosen to rule in the times when they had fallen. But that time has now ended. The yoke has been lifted. You know, y'all say Jesus lived like 2,000 years ago, and if he died for our sins, then there would be no more sin. But now we're in the times, just like of days old, you know, when we had all the wickedness on the earth and God had to destroy the earth. The Bible says Satan is the ruler of this world. You know, you got these people looking so hard, trying to find the truth in a way. You know, they got these archaeologists going around digging up bones everywhere and still can't find themselves nowhere. You know, digging up things that was supposed to be buried, things that was buried for a reason. Just think about that. Would you go dig up your own family members? So just really think about those archaeologists in those places where they are doing it. And if the people there are letting them do it, then it must not be their ancestors. But there's light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, this is not to bring anyone down. I mean, but this is the very opposite. It's to bring people to the truth, because the whole world has been led astray. Father did not create this place for death, but for life. So choose life and stop killing it. Keep the commandments. I didn't come to put an end to the law, but to fulfill it. The scepter shall not depart from Judah. In all those four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, none of them was found written in the original Hebrew. I don't think you could. Well, Jesus was called a Nazareth, but I don't think you could be a Nazareth. Was it Nazarite? If you're kissing women, so I wouldn't hold true to that. Like I said, you gotta understand during these times, you know, storytelling was entertainment, you know. So it was excitement, you know. So when you have a people that has no inheritance as far as being king, you know, they gotta dream about, fantasize about if they were. You know, so you'd have these different books in the Gospels like that. But I've been talking a little bit too much. I hope this came out pretty clear. But like I said, you know, in the Bible it tells you, the scepter shall not depart from Judah. Nowhere in the tribe of Judah is Joseph. Joseph is the tribe of Joseph, which became two, Ephraim and the Manasseh, because of Reuben. Jesus can't be nothing but a wolf in sheep's clothing. People, wake up. The truth shall set you free. Look how many was killed to promote that name for your existence and manifestation destiny. That's magic and idol worship. This is why the Son has come into the world for the ones that can see and hear, and has not hardened their hearts. God is real. Heaven is real. Lion of Judah, Word made flesh. I am the truth and the way. I have the keys to death and hell, worthy to open the scrolls. No one gets to the Father but through me. I come in the name of the Father. I am Emmanuel, King of Kings.